Jack McMullen scoops Leighton fresh off Cal Mitchell, Max Stassi, and Jose Devers. Today is Monday, December 2nd. We're playing GM. This is my first go around. You and Peter did it, obviously, for the Diamondbacks and the Braves last week, but this is my first go around with the playing GM series this offseason. We've got the Baltimore Orioles first and then the Boston Red Sox. We also have the new evil empire getting more evil, even though I kind of love it. And I thought they were both really good deals. We got to talk Blake Snell and Tommy Edman. It is the Just Baseball show. As always, it is presented by BetMGM. Arm, how crazy is it that no offense to Boston Sports Gordo, but how crazy is it that Boston Sports Gordo has what Juan Soto is a Boston Red Sox on a 20-year, $890 million contract?
Is that the latest new fake New England Boston area reporter scoop we've gotten so far on Juan Soto?
I think so. Let me pull up what he had because I know that he ran with a fake report, which was tough.
Well, there was a handful. I've seen a few. So, but this all comes from, I think, the credible reporting that was just jumped on by everybody though at the same time that the meeting went great. Who do you think told everybody that the meeting went great? I, of course, the Red Sox, who want to be very busy and have made it very, very obvious that they're going to spend in this offseason, right? Like, oh, yeah, I know we've been getting a lot of shit for being cheap. We're spending, we promise. And I think they will spend, don't get me wrong. But they've made it very clear that they're going to spend. And I think they wanted to make it very clear that the meeting with Juan Soto went amazing, right? And of course, you kind of leaked that out to every reporter in the Boston area that's waiting for anything on that front. Of course, they're going to say, "Oh, that's a great story. We're going to run with that." The Red Sox meeting went great with Juan Soto. The pressure is on, and then it kind of snowballs from there and becomes the story that it's become. And then you get a bunch of fake reporters that think, "Oh, well, it's already kind of looking like it might happen. I might as well just get ahead of this and fire from the hip." Remember that Lion in Texas account or whatever the hell
Yeah,
that
oh
was?
yeah.
Yeah, that thing's gone, I think. Thank goodness. But like it's that whole energy there. And I feel like it was the snowball effect started by the hey, guess what? The meeting went amazing, but don't tell anybody. And
Mhm.
just telling everybody that the meeting went amazing. Every media member that you know. It's well played by the Red Sox, and I'm excited to see what they do, and we're gonna make some pretty busy moves for them, I think.
My apologies to Gordo. He was just citing a report from Mike Deportes. The Red Sox have a 12-year, $50 million per year deal on the table to Juan Soto, who spoke on the phone with Rafael Devers for about an hour about the Sox. Mike reports that Soto is interested in the idea of going to the Red Sox and they are a strong contender. So he didn't say that they signed. We just had more faceless, nameless people saying that, oh, Juan Soto's a Red Sox. Look at this sick edit.
Yeah, yeah. And then Jeff Passan literally came out in the middle of Thanksgiving, said there's no deal anywhere. It's still early in the process. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we're still gonna run with some of this stuff. But that's what makes it fun, right?
I guess I wouldn't call it fun for me, but it's fun for people, I think, and we are in speculation season.
Yes.
We do have two deals solidified, and this one went down on what Tuesday night after you guys recorded the Braves and
Hmm.
D-backs episode last week, and obviously we didn't record on Thanksgiving. Blake Snell is an LA Dodger, 5 years, $182 million. The buzzword in LA now is deferred.
I've
Uh,
muted it on X, by the way. I've
did
muted
you?
deferred. Yes.
Good on
Yes.
you. So, I don't care that some of the money is deferred. What I do care about is Blake Snell is going to be wearing an LA Dodger uniform next year, and he got paid, pretty similar to Tyler Glass now. From an on-field perspective, the Dodgers have leaned into the five and dive thing, and they have the best five and dive guy in baseball here in
Yeah.
Blake Snell. They had that guy in Julio Urias before all the shit went down there. They found a guy in Glass now who is probably best suited to be the elite of the elite in terms of five and dive guys. And Snell is that guy as well. They are leaning into modern baseball with this Snell signing, and this is a murderer's row of starting pitching
Um,
next year.
well, and what I love is, yes, he is the like the best example of that, like the most dominant maybe five and dive guy. But this past season, he kind of set out to prove that he's not just that guy, right? That he can give you six, seven. He gave us a no hitter, right? He went 9 innings in one outing. You could tell that that was very important to him to be able to complete a game and
Well,
show that. But
and
down
he
the stretch,
immediately acknowledged that. He
yeah.
immediately
Oh,
acknowledged the narrative that he couldn't go nine.
he wasted no time with that.
Right.
Which but that kind of tells you where his head's at, and like I appreciate him acknowledging that he's a human being that has normal thoughts that we would all have in his position. But you look at what he did down the stretch from there too. A lot of times guys throw that no hitter and maybe slow down a little bit. That was not the case at all with Snell from the no hitter onward. The guy pitched to a 1.44 ERA over 10 starts to close out the year against some solid lineups too at the end of the season. And I think the last two starts were particularly impressive where he goes, at Baltimore, 6 shutty, and then at Kansas City, place where we know they raked, and goes 6 shutty again, 21 strikeouts between those two outings. The way that he finished the year really helped solidify the narrative of that rough start to the year, and everything was because of the fact that he's not used to not having a spring training, and the contract situation really made things difficult. I can really buy into that when you do what Blake Snell did over the final 10 starts. Like, he might have a little bit of that Jekyll and Hyde thing going on. I don't think it's going to be a problem, though. I think he's going to be good for the duration of this deal, or at least for several years of it. And I think he refound his mojo this past season. And I think the flip side is he hasn't thrown a ton of innings now like this last year, and maybe he might be feeling a little bit more fresh going into next season. I think he looked it. He looked like he was ready to go another 50 innings, 75 innings by the time the season was over.
Yeah, he totally did, and I feel like some of that could have been, the delayed start, surely. But at the end of the day, you cannot platoon a starting pitcher, but you can put starting pitchers in fortuitous situations. And by that, I mean they can be a part of a six-man rotation, or they can pitch with the security of the best offense in Major League Baseball in their dugout. And Snell has that opportunity. This is as close to like a Jock Peterson situation as I think exists in starting pitching, where you have nothing but a good scenario when you hit the rubber. And he is going to be pitching with a good scenario every single time in LA. Versus this year in San Francisco and a couple years there in Tampa, like some of the, thinner years for the Tampa Bay Rays, it was Snell's duty to win a game 2-1 or 1-0. That's not the case with the LA Dodgers. And I feel like that alleviated some pressure on Jack Flaherty after the deadline. I think that alleviated some pressure on Yoshinobu Yamamoto in his rookie season. And I think that's really going to help Glasnow over the duration of his 5-year deal. And it's going to help Snell over the duration of his 5-year deal.
In terms of being able to manage their workload too, absolutely. If you want to keep them more, at the 90 to 95 pitch mark, you don't feel like you have to absolutely stretch out and squeeze out every drop, every single start to like you said, keep the game at 2-1 or whatever it may be. But the thing that's particularly scary about this rotation, potentially, assuming Glasnow's healthy at the start of the year and ready to go, like Snell and Glasnow are guys that can actually single-handedly win you the game on the mound, though, too, right? Like, those are the guys that can give you the 6 innings of 12, 13 strikeouts or 7 innings of that. And it's like the hitters just don't even have a chance on the other side. So even the days where your offense might be a little slow, as the Dodgers, which are rare, now you have another pitcher that when he's on, I mean, Blake Snell is in that boat. There's a very short list of pitchers who, when they're on, there's almost nothing you can do. And we saw what that looks like with Blake Snell, over the final stretch of the season. And really, the second half, you don't even have to go from the no-hitter. If you just go from the second half onward after he made a couple starts in AAA and got back, it's a 1.23 ERA over 14 starts, 80 innings, 114 strikeouts. Opponents hit 123. That's actually crazy. 1.23 ERA and opponents hit 123 against him. That's just absurd stuff.
Cue up the Jackson Five. They have 3 guys, I think, that fit that bucket that you're talking about in terms of they can single-handedly win you a game and go 6 innings at 13 Ks. I think Snell is in that very thin group. I think Tyler Glasnow is in that group. And I think Shohei Ohtani is in that grouping too.
Yeah.
And like, he is the forgotten arm, but they have 3 guys. I'm not ready to put Yamamoto in there yet because we haven't really seen that. And we have not seen that to the consistency that a healthy Ohtani was giving it to us. And a healthy Glasnow has been giving it to us over the last few years. And, a healthy Snell has been giving it to us over the last few years. Those 3 guys, Ohtani, Glasnow, Snell, we could see back-to-back-to-back games for the LA Dodgers where they're getting 12 strikeouts from their starting pitcher. And that's so hard to wrap my head around, considering what they were running out through the back half and even the middle, third of this season, the LA Dodgers.
I think Ohtani, how he looks when he comes back now, and of course Yamamoto taking that next step next year can be the difference between this being one of the best rotations we've seen in the last 10 plus years, or, again, still a really good rotation, but kind of fighting and clawing for consistency because of injuries and guys working their way back and things like that. So it can't hurt to have more irons in the fire and more irons with Cy Young upside. That's a really good position to be in if you're the LA Dodgers. And I mean, to get Snell at that amount too. Like the thing
Yeah.
is, people want to complain about it and the deferred money and all that stuff. Like that's a pretty good deal for Blake Snell overall. Like I understand it's a lot of money, but we've seen what these pitchers are getting. And you see what Snell just did. And again, I know that there's been some ups and downs here and there, but we were expecting him to get a nice payday last year. Didn't happen. Several guys didn't get it. And then he comes back and looks even better in some ways after legitimately winning the Cy Young. I think there was some aspects of his game that were even more dominant on the mound. And it's not like you're paying him till he's 40. You're paying him till he's 36. So maybe in that age 36 season in 2029, he's the nth degree of that five and dive guy, where it's more of like the Kershaw at the end, where it's going to look totally different Arsenal wise. But you only really need him to give you 5 innings of sharp ball, and you're in a good spot. Again, I think that's a worst case scenario. I still think Snell, with how athletic he is, could be throwing the heck out of the ball still when he's 36. But the fact that it's 32 million per year, I really don't think that's that much. I guess with the signing bonus, it averages out to 36, but it just still doesn't even feel like that much considering some of the numbers that we're seeing thrown out for guys. We're talking about a multi-Cy Young winner and a guy that, looked as good as ever in his last dozen plus starts of the season.
I'm totally with you. And I feel really good for Blake Snell. Like, I'm very happy for Blake Snell. I know that deal made a lot of baseball fans frown. I think one that consensus made everybody smile was Tommy Edman's extension with the LA Dodgers. Like, I will tell you, as soon as I saw that come across the ticker, I was like very happy for baseball, happy for Tommy Edman, happy for the Dodgers, because that was, after the deadline, the perfect marriage. Edman
Yeah.
had one more year of team control, but he signed a 5 year, $74 million extension. He's from California. I think he's a NorCal guy. He went to Stanford, but he gets to be in his home state, closer to home. And he fits so seamlessly into that Dodger operation. And you saw it during the postseason, obviously, NLCS MVP. You could not let this guy walk. With the
No.
questions that you may have at short moving forward and the questions that you may have in center moving forward, you found a guy that's going to do a damn good job at whichever one you want him to. They
Yeah.
paid Chris Taylor. This is the better version of paying Chris Taylor.
Exactly. And I think some might be a little bit nervous, like, oh, well, look how the Chris Taylor deal went. Totally different archetypes we're talking about here, right? Chris Taylor's value was largely predicated on his power and ability to slug and versatility. But don't mistake versatility for elite defense. Again, very valuable to be versatile and be solid at a bunch of different spots. But Tommy Edman is elite at the two most premium spots, right? At shortstop and center field. And the fact that those are the two areas where when you look at the Dodgers, you're like, okay, I could see a little bit of a question mark there. You can either try to solve one or the other, let that kind of happen for you, right? See how free agency goes, see how the trade market goes, see what falls into your lap. You don't have to press and have everybody know that you desperately need a center fielder or everybody know that you desperately need a shortstop.
Yep.
They can kind of approach it how they want because Edman can plug into either and be an elite defender there, give you 30 bags. And this guy's already proven, yeah, I mean, the offense may be below league average, but he's already proven that if it's a 90 WRC plus from him at the floor, and I think that's the offensive floor, he's still going to be a 3-win player. Like he's still going to do a lot of things well. But I think he's also shown that if he's slightly above average offensively, he can be a 4-5-win player, like we saw when he had, I think it was a 106 WRC plus, and he had a 5-win season. So I think you see the ranges here where you can actually get a massive output in terms of F-WAR and just value and accumulation. But on the floor, like if he's not hitting a ton, there's still so much value there because he's going to be able to do it at two premium spots.
You're a sicko. 2022 106 WRC plus at a 5.3 F4. You're so gross.
I thought it was 5.2. I did.
I got you. What I will say is Edman obviously coming off of injury, but game totals before this: 2020, 55 games out of possible 60, 159 in 2021, 153 in 22, and 137 in 2023. He's on the field. He's a career 99 WRC plus guy, and in 5.5 seasons effectively, he has 16 WAR, 16 F
Yeah,
WAR. Like
that's
he's
what.
he's always going to do this.
What's his worst year? I only have his contract in front of me. Was it 80, 89 or 90?
So his worst year was an 89 WRC
Yeah,
plus in 2021, and 89 WRC plus still gave him 2.9 F4.
there you go. Okay. Yeah. Like I was legitimately looking at this a week ago. So that's why some of the numbers stuck, just because I'm like, what is this dude worth? And how much would I be willing to go?
He's worth
Because
this.
he's worth this. And maybe it's a little bit extra, like a little bit, um, because, they wanted to retain him and he deferred some money and all that stuff. But I mean, you're just not going to get burned on this deal. Like like there's a point where he might only give you 60 million worth of value, and oh shoot, okay. But I really think at the end of the day, there's almost no scenario where you're kicking yourself saying, why do we give this dude a deal? Because when Chris Taylor is not hitting,
Yep.
you're not really getting much value elsewhere. When Tommy Edman's struggling to hit, still doing a lot of things well for you and helping you out in a lot of different ways.
And I love the point you bring up. He creates some flexibility for the rest of their offseason, and he alleviates a lot of stress on the need to reach for a position because you need it in 2025, which is what
Yeah,
you were saying. And like I I think a lot of people would hate to see them get Willie Adames. I don't want to say I would love to see them get Willie Adames, but I do think
I don't
that's
know.
the right fit. And I think Edman in center and Adames at short is the perfect fit. And then Mookie's at second, and you call it a day. Um, if they see another outfield option as better suited for the LA Dodgers in 2025 and beyond, as opposed to Willie Adames, Edman can play shortstop for you. Like
Yep.
this is they're playing with house money right now, which is fun. And like money is not something you want to hear with the LA Dodgers because they have clearly too much of it. But we don't have a cap, and I know a lot of people want a cap. Cap is not good. Like that's not the answer, I don't think.
No.
I feel like this is the Dodgers showing off what investing in your team can do in terms of putting the money back onto the field.
Yeah, it's not just what they're spending, in free agency. This is an organization that's been investing in their players, before a lot of other organizations in terms of meal prep,
For low A
providing
guys.
housing.
Like, come on.
Yeah, like iPads, of course, but all just legitimately treating these guys well and helping them develop and investing into scouting and investing into so many different things. And then these are the moves that help put you over the top. There's a lot of other teams that can afford this. There's a lot of other teams that could have afforded the Blake Snell deal. I think ultimately Blake Snell wanted to play there, and you can't undervalue that side of it, right? You
Yeah.
cannot ignore the fact that it's where people want to play as well. There's a challenge. We talked about the Giants. Unfortunately, like they're going to get their guy, but they've struggled sometimes to land their guy because who wants to sign themselves up for that organization at this point for 10 years when you don't necessarily know who's going to be in charge in the back half of your deal. You don't necessarily know if they're going to build a sustainable winner and develop talent and all this good stuff. Like if you sign a long-term deal in LA, can't guarantee a World Series, but you can guarantee that this is an organization that one's going to try and spend,
Yeah.
but beyond that is going to develop its own talent if it misses on free agents and things like that. That you have the Dalton Rushings of the world coming up. You have these other prospects that
Yeah.
can make an impact because they're consistently investing in that. And that's why Juan Soto on his world tour that he's doing right now, continues to ask about player development, what their plans are on that front, because he knows he's spending the next decade and a half, really closer to 15 years with that organization, most likely. He wants to be in a position where he can be successful. And I think this is becoming the new norm as these contracts continue to be longer.
This is individual vetting. Like these are guys that are going through the vetting process of
It's a
suitors.
marriage.
It's marriage.
Guys get traded and stuff too, but not when you sign a mega deal. A lot of the time, if it's not going well, you might not be movable. If it's going really well, they probably won't want to move you. So odds are you're going to try to be with that team for the duration of that contract.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball is not the NBA. Like let's bang it over your head. Like if you're in a situation that you don't like, you cannot get out because you asked to get out. Like that's not how that's going to work in Major League Baseball. You sign up for your situation. And I know there was something that caught a little fire when Chris Bryant said he wasn't led astray, but he was, I guess, kind of oversold on the promise of the
Yeah,
Colorado Rockies moving forward.
wasn't totally privy to their situation, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like you need to be privy when you're signing a $210 million deal. I understand that you got a lot of money, but again, this is a marriage. Like this is something that you are taking part in, and you need to know that your organization's direction is going the right direction. Like I don't want to say it's an onus on the player, but it really benefits the player to know. And Soto is finding out. Snell knows the direction of the LA Dodgers, and he wanted to be a part of it.
Yep. I mean, and this is I think what you can boil it down to. Shohei Ohtani had another $700 million offer, man.
Yeah.
And that's per Jeff Passan, right? The Blue Jays offered that. And I promise if the Blue Jays had a better situation and could provide any optimism that they could be a sustainable winner and have proven that in any way, Shohei Ohtani probably would have considered it a little bit more seriously. So you got to consider that side of things as well.
No doubt. All right, we are going to get to two teams in the American League East, the Baltimore Orioles first and the Boston Red Sox to wrap. Before that's our first break. Let's be Mike Elias today. The Baltimore Orioles were 91 and 71, but they did lose in the American League Wild Card Series to Kansas City in Baltimore. I'll lay out some of the financial situations here and what they have on the roster right now. Their payroll in 2024 was $109 million. There was an ownership change. David Rubenstein is in now. Their projected payroll, when you account for arbitration in 2025, as it stands at this very moment, 5:18 p.m. Central, so 6:15 on Sunday, December 1st, $94.2 million. So they're about 15 shy of what they paid in 2024. You would expect that number to escalate maybe significantly. You've got Adley Rutschman entering arbitration. You have Gunnar Henderson a year away from arbitration. For the most part, this is the same team. Obviously, they lose Corbin Burns, and they are going to be operating without Kyle Bradish, who had Tommy John surgery, and we will see where the dominoes fall in terms of the starting rotation. Good news is you get Felix Bautista back. You want to start pitching or in the lineup?
Pitching's probably easier.
I think
I'm
so. It seems a bit more cut and dry.
Yeah. Let's start pitching.
So their rotation as it stands right now, with no Bradish, is Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, Dean Kramer, Albert Suarez, Trevor Rogers, Cade Povich, Chase McDermott. Some assortment of those guys. You need more talent there.
Yeah.
How do you fix
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think you got to spend. I think the ship has sailed on the major trade. I think you really got to look at it that way, especially knowing the way that Mike Elias likes to operate, which is I'm afraid of um, giving up significant prospect packages and the blowback there. I think there's been that hesitance, right? And they're now in a position where, as you alluded to, they have some money to spend, even if they just wanted to climb back to the status quo payroll wise. But all indications seem to be, and I think even Michael I said, like, we have a robust new ownership group. It's going to be different. It doesn't mean that they're going to now be players for, Max Fried per se. I think they should be and they could be. But I do think that it at least means that they could be players for an AD Evaldi or some other guys or multiple pieces. I just don't think that you're going to address this pitching situation via trade because if they do it at this point, it would almost feel backwards. It would like you should have done it before, whether it be Crochet or Luzardo. I know Luzardo ended up missing time anyways, but now it would feel forced, and I don't know if even it would make sense for the Marlins, considering how many times we've heard iterations of this trade, know that these teams have had discussions. I just don't see it happening. I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. Yeah. So I think this is where they finally leverage having some cash because Michael Elias probably has the weakest farm system he's had since we've had this show. And I doubt he's going to want to trade from that significantly.
This thing got weak quick, and it got weak because of the Corbin Burns deal. Like they lost two legitimate prospects in Joey Ortiz and DL Hall, and it got weak
and a
because
draft
of
pick.
graduations.
Yeah. Yeah, and they lost the draft pick too, right? So like, and you
Yeah.
know that they like to utilize those and have you utilize them well. But yeah, you graduate Kauser, you graduate Kerstad, you graduate Holiday. Basayo had a decent year, and that's a guy that hangs on tight. But I think even Mayo is about to graduate as well. But again, those are guys that
now
you
all
already
of a sudden
accounted
is a
for.
tweener. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it got thin quick, as you said, and I mean, I have confidence that they're going to reload.
yeah.
But not if you're going to go, pay up big time to potentially add to the rotation.
Yeah, you would need to seriously deplete if you were going to go make a splash in the trade market. So I think it's the free agent market. You mentioned Fried. I don't think they're players for Corbin Burns, unfortunately. I don't
No.
think that reunion is in the cards whatsoever. Fried is opportunity 1A. Like you take that. Max Fried, obviously he's really good. Obviously it's a career ERA, I think at 304, 305. I don't have it in front of me. The thing that endears me most to Fried, if I'm Mike Elias, 2019, this guy gave us 165 innings. 2020, it was a full shortened load. I think he made 11 starts of 12 possible. There were 60 games. 2021, 166 innings. 2022, 185. 23, injury hampered through 77, but he bounces back with 174 innings. They need reliability so badly. I know you can't pencil anybody in terms of being reliable in a starting rotation, especially in 2024, 2025, but Fried is the closest thing to it. He's going to be on the mound and he's going to be pretty good for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the name that I think immediately has to come to mind. I do feel like yes, they are going to spend, but I still feel like they're not in a position to outspend the proclaimed spenders like a
Yeah.
Boston Red Sox team that already missed out, was reportedly very heavily in on Snell, and again, just it just seemed like Snell preferred to go to the West Coast and stay over there, and it makes sense for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But I just I want to give them Freed, but again, it just feels a little
Doesn't feel
forced
right.
and it
Yeah.
feels too easy. I think it will either be a trade where they're taking on a little bit of money and like the prospect return may not be as bad, or they could maybe trade from some of their, tweener guys that aren't getting a ton of reps, like a Sonny, like going to get a Sonny Gray, and
Yeah.
maybe you can piece something together that way. But other than Eovaldi, I don't know if I can really see them. I think they're just shy of being in a position to get the tier one guys because I just don't think you would be so clearly and quickly out on Corbin Burns if you're a serious player for a Max Fried as well, especially after what you just gave up for Burns and the fact that by all indications he seemed to be fine there and liked it and it seemed to be a very amicable situation.
What I will say is the difference between Fried and Burns could end up being $80 million.
Yeah, that is true. Could
So
be
it's
could
like
be more. Who knows? Like
that's
who
another
knows?
pitcher. And I'm not sure if they were ever willing to pay $200 million for two pitchers. But if they don't go Fried, I like the Evaldi shout. I thought Mania made sense as well.
Hmm.
I think Sean Mania could be a good fallback option, but they need a starting pitcher to slap in front of Eflin and G-Rod. If they have Frater Mania or Evaldi, then Grayson Rodriguez, then Zach Eflin, I feel a lot better about figuring out 4 and 5 in that rotation with a Dean Kramer or a Suarez or a McDermott or a Povich, as opposed to shit, we got 3 spots to fill. Let's
Yeah.
figure this out.
I like the Mania shout. I think that's the perfect fit in a lot of ways because he's not gonna be cheap, but he's probably gonna be a little bit cheaper than Freed. And
Burns is here,
yeah,
Fried is here, and then Mania and everybody else is hanging out in tier three.
and Mania could be just as good as Freed if he can sustain this, and I think there's a lot of reason to believe he can.
Yeah.
And I think for the Orioles, you talked about their arbitration situation and things like that. I I'd be a little bit nervous giving out a long-term deal before knowing what the heck I'm going to be doing with some of my young core here, especially with Gunnar approaching, arbitration. Again, Westberg's going to be approaching that sooner rather than later. Like those all sneak up within the duration of a long-term deal, and I feel like you could get away with a shorter-term deal for Mania, who's 33. And maybe the AAV doesn't bother them as much. You mentioned they have some more wiggle room there. Mania is going to be shorter, probably term wise. Like I don't think it's going to be as long as a Freed and maybe some of these other guys who have also proven to do it.
Yeah.
Freed's 2 full years younger and probably ages a little bit better. At least you would hope so. And obviously Burns is just going to command a mega deal. I think Mania is the perfect fit, and I think it's just enough of the upside with not quite as like ridiculous of a risk in the eyes of Mike Elias, who tends to just operate a little bit more cautiously. To me, that seems like the signing.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm also looking at the multi-year right now. You shout out Spot Track. I love you during the
So
offseason,
good,
Spot Track.
so good.
Uh, they have what, 3 more years of control of Adley. They have 4 more years of control of Gunnar Henderson. I think Freed is going to sign for no less than 5 years. So that doesn't line up. Like you would have 2 years without Adley Rutschman possibly if he goes and gets a bigger deal elsewhere, and you would be paying Freed for 1 more year after Gunnar is gone. I think Mania could very well sign a 3 year deal and time up where he's done when Adley's done and Gunnar has 1 more year, and I think that does make a lot of sense.
Well, and just because you want to give yourself a chance, right, to be able to extend these guys too, and you don't want it to be one of those situations where it's, oh, our hands are kind of tied here with this free deal for the next 7 years.
Yeah.
Whereas even if these guys are approaching free agency and you only have 2 years of control or 1 year control, you can still give it a shot and try to extend them. Whereas again, if your hands are tied for another 3 years potentially or 2 years into free agency of these guys that Gunnar and Adley and some of the other young core it could be a little bit more difficult. And again, I could see Elias being a bit more timid of that 6, 7 year deal, which, again, I could very easily see Fried creeping close to 6. I don't see Manaea getting more than 5. And I think it's going to be 4 probably
Yeah, I could honestly see three. I could see three at 80,
at a higher
3 at 85.
AAV. And
Yeah.
I think the Orioles are probably more comfortable going higher AAV at this point
Yeah.
than longer term with the way that they've been able to develop. And, I think just the move for Corbin Burns in a vacuum alone, from a financial standpoint, didn't feel like that. It's not that massive jump in AAV type of thing. But to me, it showed an investment into short term. They knew that they were probably going to lose him, but they were willing to trade 2 young pieces and a draft pick to bring him in to give it a go for 1 year. You saw how good you could be in the regular season. Add Manaea here and give it a go for 3 years. I think Manaea makes all the sense in the world and still gives them enough flexibility to continue to try to work on a long-term deal for one of their young guys.
Let's pencil it in. So it would be Manaea, Eflin, Grayson, Kramer, and then some assortment of Albert Suarez, Povich, McDermott, Trevor Rogers. That's a better rotation. It's something I feel comfortable with. The bullpen, Felix Bautista is back. That's
Yeah.
huge. Yennier Cano can go to that comfortable setup role where it was like, are you going to close? Like, no, Kimbrel's going to close, but Kimbrel's over the hill. Like, it was just a really weird year for Yennier Cano, but he was still effective. Sir Anthony Dominguez, you have a full season of him. Keegan Aiken, Gregory Soto got full seasons of them. I don't see them trading for any reliever. I would like to see them sign two of Kirby Yates, Paul Sewald, Jose Leclerc, Jimmy Garcia, something like that, where you can add a seventh inning guy, maybe even just one of them. If they grab Kirby Yates on another 1 year deal at like 15 coming off the year that he had, that would be awesome. And that would extend their pen a little bit.
And I think with the potential savings on a little bit shorter term of a deal, you can feel more confident in, maybe spending a little bit more elsewhere and going to
Yeah.
get, a reliever. I could see if there's one trade, I could see Housley making sense if you wanted to build this super pen. Hey, we don't have a clear cut ace. And by the way, I love Manaea being added to the fold because as good as Kid Povich looked, still a little bit unproven. And
Yeah.
Trevor Rogers, like he's a project for them. So
Yeah.
if those two guys don't grab a spot, you have no lefty in that rotation.
No.
So Manaea, you can guarantee you got a lefty in that rotation, even if he takes a little bit of a step back and is a mid threes guy. But I still think he's going to be very good. I think he figured it out. That's the only trade I could see is because it's 1 year at 7 million. So the prospect's return probably wouldn't be crazy for the Cardinals and for the Orioles to give up, but it's not really much of a Mike Elias move to your point.
Hold on, Helsley. I have a Helsley thought a little bit later.
Okay.
So hold there. I was thinking Jose Leclerc, like, is that guy getting a multi-year deal? No, I think he's getting
No
1 year
shot.
for 7.5 million, and like he would be an improvement to that bullpen, I think, as a seventh inning guy.
Well, that's the thing is they don't need a closer, right? They don't even need
No,
a guy that can close.
they
Like
have
you
arguably the
have,
best closer in baseball coming off the
yeah.
brace.
And like Sir Anthony, you hope he's better, but it's a guy that's comfortable. Like he has thrown in the ninth, so hopefully you get him right and he can throw in the ninth. And you
Yeah,
mentioned it with Yenny or Cano, like that's a guy that can throw in the ninth. So I'm not too worried about a backup plan for Felix Bautista in the ninth. And Leclerc is also comfortable throwing in the ninth though at the same time. But
yeah,
maybe when you know him, or you know that he only needs to be a seventh inning guy, he kind of rises to the occasion a little bit more. And it could be lower budget like that. I don't think they're going to spend big there, but I'd like to see them go a little bit higher than that.
yeah.
But I don't know. Who do you want to throw their way?
Um,
I don't.
let's
I
see.
don't see them spending significantly. Like I think they would rather go deal shopping for like a Leclerc or something like that.
How about buying low on Paul Sewald? Because Sewald, I think Sewald still has something there.
Yeah, I do too. The release is too funky.
It's too
Like
funky. He's
he's too weird.
35. It's not like he's 40. And like he can just spin his way out of the seventh inning and you hand the ball to Cano, who hands the ball to Felix, and the game's over.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good one. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great option.
Let's throw in Paul Sewald on a 1 year deal. Last but not least, the lineup. It looks really good on paper. I think they lack depth. catching stable right now. Adley Rutschman, then Blake Hunt and Renee Pinto. James McCann walked. You can bring McCann back. I have another backup catcher in mind that I'll bring you in a moment. First base, Ryan O'Hearn is still in the mix, as is Ryan Mountcastle. Kobe Mayo is there if first base presents itself as an opportunity for Kobe Mayo. Third base, Westberg and Kobe Mayo. The middle infield, Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, if he's not playing third base. Jorge Mateo had the internal brace in August. He should be good to go after about a month. So there is your middle infield depth. And in the outfield, Cedric Mullins, Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Daz Cameron is the
Hmm.
projected fourth outfielder right now on opening day. So I see a need for another outfielder and a backup catcher.
Yeah, they need a right-handed hitting outfielder for sure.
So
I also think they need one more reliever. Can we throw them Leclerc too?
yeah, Leclerc and Seawald. Why not? Come on
There you
down.
go. There we go. Okay. They need a right-handed hitting outfielder. And
Yeah.
this could
So
be where you make the trade potentially.
so I've got trade options. And do you want the new identity Orioles or do you want the Orioles that we've come to know?
Build me up to the new identity.
So the old Orioles would be going to acquire Stone Garrett from
Oh,
Washington.
that's actually a great idea though.
Yeah. The recent Orioles, where it's like, oh, you got something going on, would be going to acquire Esteury Ruiz from the A's on a buy low. And then I'll build you up to Taylor Ward from the Angels. I
But they're
think
in win now.
what?
So they're in win now mode.
The Angels? Yeah, you're right. So Taylor Ward is off the market. I do think that center field help could be big. Esteury Ruiz is the sexiest one of those three to me.
Yeah. Do they move? I mean, the A's clearly have don't like him that much.
They don't like him, and Blade is holding down center field for the foreseeable future now. Like he essentially is outfield depth at this point, or he just goes back to AAA and they burn his third option.
Yeah, Nick Kurtz is like taking corner outfield reps. Like
Yeah,
I don't see them really valuing him a ton. That could make a lot of sense. I could see that being a pretty good fit for them. And you deploy him mostly against lefties. You put him in positions for success. He's an elite speed up guy for you to pair with Mateo, and you have that versatility. It's low impact, but I don't think they need power as much, right? Like it's more they just need a right-handed bat added to the fold there.
yeah. So Esteury Ruiz was my ideal trade option. Um, I think the equivalent to Esteury on the free agent market is a 1+1 deal with a club option for Harrison Bader to be your fourth
Yeah.
outfielder.
Yeah, that was the other guy that I was looking at where I'm like, I guess that makes sense. Like it just seems like a fit. And it's one of those where like every fan base can be like, no, like we want to aim higher than that. No, we want to aim higher than that. But like someone's gonna end up with him and he's gonna get paid a decent amount.
Yeah.
He did last year. I don't think he's gonna earn the same amount that he got last year, but Bader's still a guy that's gonna give you a ton of value defensively. I mean, he's going to hit enough to justify the roster spot. The thing
Yep.
that bothers me is he doesn't hit lefties any better than he hits righties. So you'd prefer like the platoon bat situation a little bit.
Yep.
One other name is Randall Grichuk,
Hmm.
and this is probably going to be our like Brad Boxberger this year, where I could fit him into a lot of ball clubs.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about teams that need a right-handed bat, like if you need a right-handed bat, Grichuk's the guy. But what I like about Grichuk as well is that he showed that he can actually hit righties as well as ever this year. He's not going to be as cheap as people probably think, and that's why I think like that we went a little bit cheaper in these other two spots. He's still going to be reasonably priced. Like he's not going to
Yeah.
be a $60 million guy, right? But I think that's where they can say, okay, yeah, we'll give 30 million to Grichuk then, over a couple years or whatever it may be, because we didn't spend egregiously really in any particular spot. I think that could be a really good fit as well as a guy that can play either corner pretty comfortably. I know he was hitting so well that the D-backs utilized him in the DH spot at points, but it's just going to demolish lefties at the very least.
Yeah. So what intrigues you more? Like a 1 year deal for Grichuk or 4 years of control for Ruiz?
It. I
They're
think if I'm
trying to
trying to
win.
win,
They're trying to win a World Series, so I think Grichuk makes more
if I'm
sense.
trying to win tomorrow, it's Grichuk. Like he's and also just adding another vet to the fold too. I just
Yeah,
like the idea of that.
for sure.
Um, Ruiz is a fun option, but I also think, with where the A's are at, there's not necessarily a ton of incentive to move him unless, the Orioles offer a unique arm that, maybe they can't say no to, or, something like that.
Yeah.
So I I think Grichuk makes the most sense because of the way that he can spell lefties. And I mean, this is a lineup, right? That Gunnar Henderson, left-handed hitter, Adley switch hitter, but O'Hearn lefty, Kowser lefty, Mullins lefty, Kerstad lefty, Holiday lefty. Then the guys that you have right now to potentially have the short side of the platoon are a Kobe Mayo, as you mentioned, but then it's Emmanuel Rivera, Ramon Arias, Daz
Pretty
Cameron,
good.
and like I said, and for the outfield options, it's rough. So I think he makes a lot of sense and can make a huge impact as soon as this year.
Cool. So let's sign Grichuk, and then backup catcher. Do you bring James McCann back for the intangibles and the manager in the dugout, the second manager, or do you sign Carson Kelly to a 1 year deal? Carson Kelly had a 99 WRC plus, but he was really good defensively, resulted in a 1.8 F4 in 91 games.
That's pretty wild. He
Yeah,
really bounced back.
yeah,
I've heard this team like gush about McCann so much. I remember watching a game not long after he got hit in the face, and like
yeah.
the way he went about his business, and all the young guys were like, yeah, he's an animal. Like he's just loves the game. He always sets the tone for us, this and that. And like, so why would you like that's the most important aspect of the backup catcher gig. Like Carson Kelly could be a great guy. I have no idea. But
Yeah.
why would you just try that again with somebody else that definitely better, but how much value do you put on the output side of things versus I think the value that is brought to the table. And I don't think James McCann is going to be any more important to any other team than the Orioles. The only concern is like the defense isn't really what it used to be from McCann.
Yeah.
He swung it fine, but remember, like Adley, like he ceded 233 plate appearances to James McCann this year. And Adley didn't have a great year overall, so they might want to give him a little bit more time off. But you also have Samuel Basallo knocking on the door, so maybe you don't care as much and just want that vet and kind of carrying McCann. So I think McCann makes the most sense because you don't
Yeah.
want to sell a Carson Kelly on a backup gig. Then if Samuel Basallo is ready to go, you're going to kind of displace him too. I think
Right.
McCann just seems like the right guy to be there.
I like that. Okay, so we retain McCann. So the team that we just put together, Adley Rutschman, James McCann, Renee Pinto, Blake Hunt is the catching depth. First base, O'Hearn, Mountcastle, Mayo. Second base, Jackson Holiday, Westberg, Mateo, whatever it is. Shortstop, Gunner, Jackson is the backup, Mateo as well. Third base, Westberg and Kobe Mayo. The outfield, tandem of four, Cedric Mullins, Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Randall Grichuk. The rotation that we just put together, Sean Manaea, Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, Albert Suarez, let's call it Cade Povich, and then you've got Chase McDermott and Trevor Rogers as depth. And then the bullpen, Felix Bautista, Yennier Cano, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Paul Sewald, Jose Leclerc, Keegan Aiken, Gregory Soto. It's a better
I like
team, and it's not going to cost that much.
I want to trade Ryan Mountcastle. It doesn't help for the sake of the exercise of making the team better, but I just think he's going to get moved, and this is a way to make the system better. Look, we don't need to go through that thought exercise, but I would also potentially add the idea, especially if the thing is I don't know if you want to do that until big league camp. See how Mayo's doing at first base. Like Kobe Mayo had not had a ton of experience at first, didn't look very comfortable there when he did get the opportunity to play there. But Mayo's such a good athlete for his size. I know he didn't hit great either when they threw him into the fire. Mayo is going to be a guy for them, and I think you look at where they're at. Also, the fact that it would save you $4+ million. But I think being able to potentially get a couple decent prospects back, and then let Kobe Mayo play. You have O'Hearn on the other side of it, and then also Basayo, and also in the DH spot. Then you could go to a Grichuk and move and mix and match still a little bit in the worst case of scenarios. I think assuming things look good in spring training with Mayo at first base, I'd be very comfortable moving Ryan Mountcastle for prospects.
How about a Mountcastle for Braxton Ashcraft?
I think you can get more than that. No, Braxton Ashcraft is always hurt, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, but he's really good when he's on the mound, and he
Yeah,
could be a reliever as soon as 2025.
yeah, that is true. And when he's on the mound, like you saw it
It's
up close
it's
and
a top
personal.
100 prospect in baseball, dude. Like by
It's just
several outlets.
And I mean, that'd be a fun arm to add. You could put him in the bullpen. You could hope that he, transitions back into the starting rotation as
He and
another option.
McDermott are Spider-Man memeing at that
Yeah,
point.
I like that. Yeah, let's lock that in. And if people are upset about it, throw in a flyer. I don't care, Orioles fans, if you're
Yeah,
upset that it wasn't enough. All right, throw in a lower level flyer. You can have Mitch Jeb too.
easy. Why not? Not Jack Brannigan though. Maybe Johnny Severino. So
Yeah.
we'll see on that front. But that is the new and improved Baltimore Orioles, and you only escalate by a little bit. I think that's probably escalating by $30 million in terms of payroll.
And
So
that
you
gives
were
you flexibility at the deadline potentially too, if you want to take on another deal or go about some things a little bit more aggressively. So I think it puts them in a great spot.
Yep. All right, we're gonna do the Boston Red Sox in a moment, but one more quick break. The Boston Red Sox did not make the postseason in 2024, but they are trying to spend some money.
Where'd
Everybody's
you
got
hear
a
that?
yeah, I don't everywhere, man. Twitter, X, Grok. I saw Grok is 40% off. I don't know what Grok is. Did you do it?
Of course not. There's no way.
I just
There's
don't
no
know
way.
what it means.
It's just some AI thing. It's some AI thing on X, I think.
But
I didn't even realize that
ChatGPT
was
is
an
free.
extra subscription. I thought that was included. I had no idea.
In Blue? I don't know. I don't have Blue. I don't have Grok. I'm not going to buy anything from that guy,
No,
unfortunately.
no.
The Boston Red Sox are leveling up, and this is where I get the iPad out. And I bought a new Apple Pencil for the sake of the
Oh,
exercise. That was huge for me. Do you see that? That's a lot of
that
chicken
wasn't cheap.
scratch.
I know that Apple Pencil wasn't cheap.
I got the one that you have to manually charge, so it was 79.95 instead of
That's so
119.95.
crazy for a digital pencil.
Yeah, but dude, it
I wanted
changes.
one so bad, and I was looking at it like, there's no way. I can't do it yet.
There are very few things that like have actually changed my life in terms of purchases. The hatch alarm, the one that like slowly mimics the sunrise when you
Oh,
get up,
yep. We got those
literally
in this
changed my
household.
life.
I didn't buy
Um,
it.
what else?
Yeah.
I've got one of those like big neck massagers that you put around your arms, and
Mm-hmm.
it essentially sits on your neck. That has literally changed my life. And then an Apple Pencil that has literally changed my life.
Apple. Yeah, even though you have to manually charge it.
Yeah, that's okay. No pain, no gain, buddy. So the Boston Red Sox in 2025, their payroll was $188.5 million. Their estimate as it stands right now, factoring on arbitration, is $132 million. Does that sound like a lot? They're 14th in tax estimate right now. So they are a middle of the pack payroll. They're talking like they're willing to be a top five payroll in Major League Baseball.
Yep.
So let's get active. Where do
Mm-hmm.
you want to start? Rotation, bullpen, lineup.
Let's just do the obvious here. They're going to be the high bidders on Max Free. They have to be, right? Like, and if they're not, where else are you going? Corbin Burns doesn't make sense to me in terms of a fit with all the right-handed guys that they have, and like, the cutter guys as well. Like, there's a lot of similarities to some dudes they already have that
Yeah.
like to wear out the bottom of the zone as well. Like, I know Burns gets whiffs all over and things like that. I think you need a left-hander here. Like, there's not even a left-hander within shouting distance of this rotation. So I think that's got to be the obvious move, right?
So, yes, or you trade for Crochet. And I know that the dialogue has been there, and I know that the reports have been there over the last week. I've got a Crochet trade mocked for you. Um, I think if they trade for Crochet, they would also sign one of Walker Bueller or bring back Nate Eovaldi.
Well, so here's the interesting thing. When you sign or when you trade for Crochet, it's implied at this point that that's going to come with an extension,
Yes.
essentially.
Yes.
Even so, for what they're saying they want to do, could they not go get freed as well?
They absolutely could.
Because that deal I imagine with Crochet is going to be semi backloaded, where you'd have Story coming off the books, and you'd have maybe Yoshida coming off the books, at least at some point in the earlier side of that deal.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll make them more comfortable, handing out another, big deal to a left-handed starter.
So I like it and I want to mock it. Sign Freed, trade for Crochet. Do both because that rotation would then turn into Max Fried, Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford / Lucas Giolito when he comes back, and then Richard Fitz, Chriswell, Quinn Priester as depth.
Yeah.
That's such a better situation than what they ran out in 24.
And I mean, I don't think like an extension, if they, assuming it happens right away, like it's going to be expensive, but it's not going to be, I think, anything incredibly outrageous because he's only set to make 3 million by Spotrac's estimate in arbitration this
And
year.
and dude, like he's got 1 year as a starting pitcher under his belt. Like
Yeah.
I understand it was really good, and I understand that guy may think he's a nine-figure pitcher, but nine figures ain't 200. Nine figures could be a 7 year, $100 million deal.
Well, I was thinking like even something close to the Glass now deal, maybe
Yeah.
at the most. And like,
Yeah.
okay, at 150, like you're still really in a good spot financially where I think you can feel pretty comfortable with that. Of course, if he gets hurt and things like that, that stinks, but that's what happens with any pitcher. In terms of average annual value, with the 2 years of control that you'll have and the ARB number being so low to start, most pitchers that are coming off of a year that was this good, their ARB number in ARB two, which is what he's in this year, would be 10, million dollars or something along those lines. It's three because he was, a reliever out of the gate and hurt and stuff like that. So I really think you can leverage that pretty well and use these 2 years of control to have a pretty affordable contract extension with him. And I think that frees you up to go get a Max Fried. I don't see them spending on the offensive side of things. So why not take your rotation and just make it outrageously good? And I
Yep.
think that, Max Fried offsets some of the risk with a Crochet,
I think
where,
so.
again, you want to see him come back and do it again. He faded at the end of the year a little bit, but there's probably a lot of reasons for that, considering the major one being where he was throwing and, also just wanting to limit his innings and all that good stuff. But just having Free to flank that a little bit as okay, like at the very worst of Crochet's and great, like we still have that guy that has frontline ability and Freed.
Yeah.
I think you got to feel great.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't want to spoil like how the sausage is made on getting Crochet on that team, but I think Fried and Crochet on that team is good to pencil in the rotation right now. The bullpen, as it stands right now, Liam Hendricks, Justin Slayton, Greg Weissert, Brennan Bernardino, Luis Guerrero, Justin Wilson. I think this is where the trade for the closer comes in, and I think you can grab two for essentially one. I think they should sign a setup guy. I think they should go grab a Clay Holmes or a Tommy Kahnle. I think that could work. Holmes is obviously like, I think Holmes might be a little bit too expensive to be a
Yeah.
setup guy. I think a mid-tier team is going to pay him to be a closer, and it's going to be like, yeah, all right, fine. I think if they go grab a guy to be a top flight setup guy, maybe Kirby Yates fits in here. Maybe, Kahnle fits in here, that kind of thing. I think that makes a lot of sense. But can I pitch you on a Helsley trade?
Yeah, I like a Helsley trade. I just it depends on how bad the Crochet trade hurts.
So
Yeah, it's gonna
these two
hurt.
these two kind of work hand in hand. Garrett Crochet from the White Sox for Tristan Casas, who the
Oh
White Sox can then flip, Braden Montgomery and Chase Mydroth.
wow. Can we
Is that
trade
an
the
overpay?
prospects? Can we trade the
What?
pro Casas? Can't trade Casas.
Hear me out. Crochet for Casas, Braden Montgomery and Mydroth. Ryan Helsley and Nolan Arenado for Wilyer
Oh my
Abreu
God.
and David Sandlin. And then you
This is
move Devers to first. Arenado plays third.
But so okay, I think. Do you actually think that they're going to do that? Like, do you actually think they want to do that?
I think if they have the opportunity to get Nolan Arenado and Helsley in the same deal, they would put Nolan Arenado at third base and Devers could play first. Because Devers, like, okay, he's improved year over year. He's average. He's plateauing as a slightly below average defensive third baseman.
But do you think? I don't know if he wants to move.
They're paying him for what, 11 more years? He's going to have to move at some point.
Yeah, and then like to Casas could be like a monster. And if you're the White Sox, would you rather prospects or would you? I mean, I don't even think you flip Casas at that point. You probably just put him in at first base, but then he's gonna what have 4 years of control left after that?
Think so.
Would you
I
rather
think
have a guy that's already a couple years into his control potentially, or like a year and change, or would you rather just have the biggest prospect return possible if you're Chris Katz?
I don't know because you're not getting Roman Anthony.
No, Roman Anthony's a non-starter.
Anthony's a non-starter. Would you rather have Tristan Casas and if the right deal comes across your desk, you move him? Or would you rather have Braden Montgomery and Marcelo Meyer And like, I, my
I'd
draw,
rather move Braden Montgomery and Marcelo Meyer if I'm the Red Sox for
yeah,
sure.
no doubt. But like, what's going to get the deal done for Crochet? Because I
Just because
know there's going to be a lot of good deals on the table for Getz.
I'm just thinking about the infield, right? Where you move forward now and you have an aging third baseman.
Hmm.
Your new first baseman is very expensive, but obviously you feel great about that because it's a
He's
great
a
deal. And
franchise cornerstone.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's like borderline on a Hall of Fame path. And you're still trying to figure out shortstop at that point. You're just going to roll with Story until Meyer's ready.
Or Story and then Sadon is there too.
I would just want to trade from the glut of outfielders so bad
I
because
understand, which is why Willier would be going to St. Louis for Helsley and Nolan.
oh, uh, for 1 year of a reliever,
1 year of a reliever and 3 years of Nolan Arenado.
but he's like not that good anymore.
It's Arenado. Like, I don't know how much the name matters here. I know it hurts, but let me just like put this together for you. It would be Wong and Teal when he's ready as the catchers, Devers at first, Christian Campbell, David Hamilton, Vaughn Grissom at second, Story and Cedon Rafaela at short, Arenado at third. The outfield is Duran in left, Cedon, who they extended in
Which is
center,
crazy,
is
crazy that they did
crazy.
that.
Cedon in center, Roman Anthony in right, Yoshida is the DH.
So you put Duran in right
Duran in left to deal with the
or
monster,
Duran in left.
and Roman in right.
Okay. I mean that's it's absurd. It's really good. I just I just don't know if they're like there has been some rumors about them wanting to trade Casas, right? Or being open to
Yeah,
moving him.
yeah. Because that initially started with Bregman. It would be you get Bregman, put him at third base, Devers would move to first, and you trade Casas for pitching.
I mean, he's a first baseman, so I think I get it. And I know I'm looking at like Ken Rosenthal floated Casas as a potential trade partner for the Mariners and stuff like this. So like I feel like Ken's not floating that unless he's being floated,
He
right?
seems
Like
pretty dangled. Based on everything that I've read, it seems like Casas is being dangled.
God, I just well, and I guess if the Red Sox really buy into Christian Campbell, like that's a guy that can take over second base,
Yeah.
and obviously had one of the best minor league seasons we've seen in some
And
time.
and backup irons in the fire of Grissom and David Hamilton, I think is a really good situation. And Emmanuel Valdez. Like, wow, man.
So Casas, you said
Casas, Braden Montgomery, and Mydroth for Crochet.
Braden Montgomery. I mean, is that enough?
I
I
think
think
so.
so. I think Casas is. I mean, Casas could be an absolute monster,
But
but it
Crochet
makes
is a
sense.
monster. He's the
Yeah,
best
and
pitcher on the trade market.
no, I'm saying like in terms of trying to compare that to the prospect value. Sometimes I struggle to perceive the value of a young budding star or that has proven to be good in the major leagues. Like that at the very least Casas is a 120 WRC plus guy,
Yeah.
but we don't know if he's going to achieve his ultimate ceiling just
Right.
yet. I think he will. I'm willing to bet on that guy, no doubt about it. But how do you value a guy that hasn't quite proven that yet, but has
Right.
proven that he's damn good?
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. So I think with the White Sox too, like if you're Chris Getz, he seems like I mean, he seems like he is terrified to miss on this Crochet deal.
Yeah.
Like I think he is petrified of the idea of having nothing to show for it, and I think that's why it's been so important to have the headliner, right? And have like they've asked for almost like they can't miss prospects from every ball club.
Yeah.
An even easier way to do that would be to get the proven big leaguer,
Yeah.
essentially, even though he's still a young rising star, he's proven that he's going to hit.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be one of those where he falls on his face. So, I mean, you're wilding with this, but
Hmm.
I mean, if it doesn't sound like it's far fetched, so it's just not how I would do it.
I
But
know.
it sounds
I
like
know.
that's how they might do it.
So how would you do it?
I mean, like it's funny coming from the prospect guy, but like, dude, fuck those prospects. Like, aside from Roman Anthony, like, hey, it's Garrett Crochet. I don't care. More
Yeah.
often than not, you give up a huge package of prospects and you get the stud. You're gonna be better off for it. The
Yeah.
difference is The Red Sox are in a weird, unique situation where they have three arguably blue chip prospects, and you can't hold on to all of them, right?
No.
Even if you could put together value wise enough of a deal outside of them, there's just some sort of, I think, hiccup in a negotiation where it's like, if you know what I have and I'm not willing to give you any of the three, it's always going to be looked at, especially if the trade doesn't go well, as you didn't get one of their top three guys
Yeah.
and you ended up with that. So you're going to need and expect one of Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, and Marcelo Meyer.
Yep.
Meyer's the one guy that I think they would probably be willing to trade. Meyer's probably the guy that the White Sox want the least.
Hmm.
So you put yourself in that spot there, you're hung up, and that's probably why we haven't seen a trade yet. Then you got to pivot somewhere else. So what I would do personally is I would throw Christian Campbell in there too, but that's more of a me thing. And
Yeah.
you should listen to the call up about that because I'm clearly the lowest human on the universe on Christian Campbell just for having him as like a really good tier two prospect.
Right.
But yeah, that the consensus is, outside of us, that he's tier one and potentially top 10 prospect in the game. And if that's how other GMs see it, I wouldn't want to just package that with
Yeah.
another player. So considering the roster situation as well, where, I mean, if Von Grissom doesn't bounce back, they need a right-handed hitting infielder as well. I think you go your route then, and I'm okay with that. I would move Campbell, but again, that could end up being the reason why I got fired in this fairy tale universe because I
Right.
was wrong about Christian Campbell, who, again, I think is going to be good. I
Right.
don't think is going to be as good as people say.
So you're making a playoff push at the end of 2025, September 10th, 2025. This is the lineup that you're running out with Garrett Crochet on the mound. You're running out Kyle Teal or Wong catching, Devers at first, Campbell at second, Story at short, Arenado at third, Duran in left, Rafaela in center, Roman Anthony in right, Yoshida DHing. And your bullpen options would be Helsley, uh, let's call it Tommy Canley, Liam Hendricks, Justin Slayton, Greg Reisert.
And I mean, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. Can you remind me what the trade was for uh, Helsley
And Arenado.
and Arenado? Because
Will you?
Arenado, I think, still is a net positive, but not that much because of the contract.
Yeah.
By the way, would have a resurgence, I do think, in Boston.
If he can
With
play
that,
Pepper off that monster, dude.
that's all he's got to do. And play a good defense. And he would
I mean,
provide more value at third base defensively to eat into the dip that you would have offensively at that spot. And then, at first base, as good as Casas has been when he's healthy, it
Devers
would be an
is
uptick in
twice the
offensive.
player.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So,
It would be
yeah, that's
Arenado and
gross.
Helsley for Will Abreu and David Sandlin.
I don't even know if they need to like add to that, right? Like
You
Will
could just,
Abreu's a rookie of the year finalist, a great defender in a corner
yep.
with above average power, above average speed, and I think has shown a fantastic approach.
Not a Rookie of the Year finalist. It was
Oh,
Wells,
not
Cowser,
should
and
have been.
Heedle, which was a joke. Willier should have been a finalist.
Willier should have been a finalist. I know he limped to the finish line, but he also played the whole year
Yeah.
and gave you a lot of value there. Willier Abreu for 1 year of Helsley and 3 years of
Nolan, 3 for 52 for Nolan.
I almost feel like it's such a weird trade. Like in a vacuum value wise, that probably makes sense. But I almost feel like the Red Sox are like giving up too much, if that makes sense.
It does because Willier Abreu is a very good defender in a corner outfield spot, along with being a 780 OPS guy this year.
Mind you, I would also be adamant. Like if I'm in the front office there, you can't move the Yoshida contract. It's not going to happen.
No.
And he's still like a net positive player. Like he's a solid bat. So you're not just going to cut ties or eat the money to move him.
Yeah.
And, I think you can get similar offense. It wouldn't be the defensive value, but this is a spot that you're going to end up having to DH anyways, because you mentioned it. Duran's elite defensively. You have Roman Anthony, who you're not going to want to DH to start his career as he gets an opportunity, and then Ceddanne Rafaela you extended because he's so good defensively. So you would end up compromising some of Willier's value anyways, having him DH where he was a 114 WRC plus guy, struggled in the second half. Again, I think he's a really solid bat.
Yeah.
But I do think that if I was in the Red Sox front office, I would very much be eager to cash in potentially on him because it's a really good season. It's a rookie. I get it, but I don't know how much more upside there is there. And I think he might just kind of be what you saw at the end of the year anyways, even though it was this like up and down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like you can play games with prospects going, one way or another. I don't think the Cardinals are going to add prospects on top of those guys anyway. So
No.
I think it just works out as is with that deal, and it protects the Red Sox farm system, which still ends up being insanely good, and their pieces are ready to help them too at the big league level.
Yep. So the team that we constructed, I do think we probably need to add some bench help, but we can just do that with like 1 year free agent deals. The team that we constructed is Freed, Crochet, Hauk, Bayo, Giolito slash Crawford, and the rotation depth is Fitz, Quinn Priester, Cooper Criswell. The bullpen would be Helsley, Liam Hendricks. Throw me a free agent. Is it Kirby Yates?
We go Kirby Yates here. I'm trying to think of a guy that they would want to like. I feel like they're going to want to get someone undervalued that could be better and be adjusted, like a Kyle Finnegan or
Sure.
something like that. But yeah, who's like a bounce back guy? I mean, you mentioned Seawald earlier. Like that's probably a good fit for them too.
Sewald is a good
Uh,
Boston Red Sox.
but Seawald does actually sound like a great Boston Red Sox, but we already pimped him out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me pull up this list
is
here.
Finnegan too low of a bar?
Maybe could they do like an Aroldis Chapman thing?
Maybe. I mean, dude, Finnegan still had 38 saves in a 3.68. I think
Yeah,
Finnegan is
let's do
let's go
Finnegan.
Finnegan. And he's a
Okay.
tweak away potentially from I think being a lot more effective.
Okay. So Helsley, Hendricks, Finnegan, Slayton, Luis Guerrero, Greg Weissert, Justin Wilson, who they just signed to that big league deal, and they view as a reclamation project. So that's the pitching staff.
Can you get the White Sox to throw in another like middle reliever?
Probably. Who would the White Sox have in that bullpen? Like, who do you want? You're not getting Leisure, but you could probably get literally anybody else.
Mike Soroka, who was much better out of the pen.
I think Soroka's a free agent.
Oh yeah, he is a free agent.
Yeah, you want to sign Soroka too?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I just wanted him to be thrown in for free.
Prelander
Uh,
Baroa.
he was like not the worst. He was not the worst. Yeah, it's irrelevant. We're just stretching this episode out at this point.
That's fine. But
Yeah, that's
that's
fine.
the staff. Objectively better staff there, and you really only paid for Freed because you've got Crochet and you're inevitably going to extend him.
Yeah, you essentially paid for Freed, and then yeah, you paid for Crochet, but it
Yeah,
was one of those deals that was too good to pass up on. You like pull out the credit card, like oh,
yeah,
like speaking of like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, like it still hurt, but
right.
like it was too good. You'd wanted it for a while. You know that you need it, and you're like, I mean, it's never going to be cheaper than this. Here we go, and you just put the card down.
Exactly. The lineup that we have now, opening day 24 or opening day 25, is Wong, Devers at first, um, David Hamilton at second, Vaughn Grissom at second, but maybe Christian Campbell.
Christian Robinson could break camp. Like
You said Robinson.
oh,
You said Christian Robinson.
that's crazy.
Long live
That's
the
crazy.
D-backs.
That's crazy. He cannot break camp. I hope
No.
I hope that he is still in camp.
Yeah.
But
Christian Campbell
wow.
could break camp.
Christian Campbell could break camp
So
very
let's
easily,
say,
especially with when he gets hot, dude. Like he could have that Jordan Walker spring training and just the Red Sox will have no choice. They'll
yeah.
have to break camp.
So let's say Campbell breaks camp. He starts there. Story at short. Arenado at third. Duran in left. Rafaela in center. Roman breaks camp in right. Yoshida is
Yeah.
the DH. The bench at that point would be Mickey Gasper as the backup catcher until Teal is ready. I like you could sign a guy on a 1 year deal and just DFA him, like Tucker Barnhart, welcome to the Boston Red Sox, that kind of thing. I don't know if there's anybody sexy like that.
Didn't they sign Sebi Zavala?
Oh yeah, Sebi could just be the backup catcher and like whatever. And then your depth options, your bench options. David Hamilton is certainly on that bench. Then you've got Vaughn Grissom sitting there. You've got Romy Gonzalez sitting there. You've got Sogard, Rob Refsnyder, Emmanuel Valdez.
I love Ref Snyder in that role of the lefty masher,
Yeah.
and I think
And
it's
and he
perfect
could be the
fit.
fourth outfielder. He creates that platoon with Roman, and Roman
Yeah.
doesn't have to see lefties to start his big league career.
Well, and that's exactly how I'd want to do it, to be honest, because this is where the PPI rule is great, right?
Yeah.
You have the number one prospect in baseball. The American League, I think, is wide open from a rookie of the year perspective.
Yes.
And especially with Caminero not eligible anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I personally think you could probably justify 3 weeks, maybe, or even as many as 100 at bats in AAA for Roman Anthony, so he can hit the ground running when he gets to the big leagues. But with this PPI opportunity, you don't pass that up. You can ease him into action, like you said, by protecting him from lefties. If you feel like it might be a little aggressive for him to break camp, and it might be a little bit,
Yeah.
but if you have a chance to get this pick, and I think he has a great chance to win it, that's the perfect way to do it.
Yep. And you want a backup corner infielder? Welcome to Boston, Patrick Wisdom or Connor Joe.
Yeah, I think you're good with Von Grissom already. Like if Campbell breaks camp, you got Von as the backup middle
I
infielder.
just wonder who plays first base if Devers has to miss some time.
Yeah, who does play first base if Devers has to miss some time?
I don't think anybody. So like that makes me think Wisdom or Connor Joe could just be a good bench piece.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Wisdom
Really
for some
exciting.
boom. Like Wisdom might hit a ball over the monster, 1 out of every 5 games he plays. Like, cool, call it a day.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm trying to think who they have like in the minors that could remotely be an option as well. Uh,
Mydroth.
yeah, Alex
Although no,
Pinellas,
we traded Mydroth. Yeah, Pinellas. They moved Nico
Blaze
Cavadas.
Jordan.
Dude,
They don't have options at first. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, they definitely need a corner guy to add to the fold there.
let's
Um,
let's throw him Connor Joe for the vibes.
yeah, yeah. I would say maybe the White Sox throw in Andrew Vaughn going the other way.
No, I don't think they would do that. They probably still value Vaughn as like a huge net positive.
Yeah. All right,
I
that
feel
sounds good to me.
I feel good about this team, man.
Yeah, that's a good team. That's good. You'd
Imagine.
also have to account for them losing Yordani Monegro to the Rule 5 draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody's gonna stash.
they got to. They
So
got to. That guy's the top prospect in the Rule 5 draft. Check out our Rule 5 draft breakdown preview on the call up as well. That's out on all platforms. I know people have got to be just so pumped for that.
yeah, no doubt. And I was looking at the Google sheet. I saw we have a Rule 5 draft recap on the Just Baseball show coming up after the
We're
winter
doing that
meetings.
on the Just Baseball show.
Hell yeah, man. Why not?
Hell yeah. I'm excited to see the
Quick.
numbers on. I can't wait to see the numbers on that one.
Well, it's gonna be funny. You watch the YouTube thing, you know how like you see the peaks and valleys of when people like fast forward to. We've got two playing GMs right after that. So it'll be like Rule 5 draft and then it'll spike for the playing GMs and then it'll just pick up from there.
Yeah, this is for you, Ben, our YouTube extraordinaire. Can you make the clickbait like who was drafted first in the Rule 5 draft? Or like in our
First,
expressions,
just
just
do
like,
first
oh my
overall
gosh.
pick. Yeah.
Like, can't believe who went first. It's gonna be Thad Ward all over again. But that sounds great. I think like I genuinely think the Red Sox are in a position to go from potentially projected to finish, second to last in the division or last in the division to being arguably one of the favorites. Of course, well, it depends on how the Soto thing goes. We probably should have acknowledged this isn't a non. I know you acknowledge it, but like again, follow up. I understand that it's been discussed that the Red Sox are the favorite, and I'm not totally diminishing that report in terms of like the meeting went well. I'm sure it did.
Yep.
I'm sure that Soto is now seriously considering them, and I believe in this new front office. I believe in Craig Breslow. I like what they're doing. The farm system's good. It's very easy to buy in. He grew up a fan of the team. He has a connection with Devers. All makes sense. But just statistically speaking, there's what officially 4 like clear-cut options. You could really throw in a fifth. It's more likely that he's not a Red Sox player to start the season than he is, even if they're the favorite, right? Like, even if you're the favorite, nobody has more than a 50% chance of getting Juan Soto. That's how they wanted this to go. That's how this is always going to go. So that's why we're operating this way. Of course, you get Juan Soto, that changes everything. We operate a little bit differently here. But again, it's more likely that they don't than they do. So might as well, have the discussion around not signing the biggest contract essentially ever for just a position player.
Bingo. Everything else you need is in our episode description, including obviously a link to justbaseball.com. Editorial team is kicking ass right
As
now.
always.
So go click around justbaseball.com, read whatever your heart desires, and Peter and I will be back to talk to you on Wednesday.